while Michael Deeb sips on his coffee, and we go live with a new edition of Bid Nerds. Welcome, everybody. It's the middle of the week edition of the Nerd Out, your daily Nerd Out on the most interesting cars on Cars and Bids. My name is John Polnik, along with my partner Michael Deeb, who is coming to you live from the San Francisco Bay Area, whereas I am on the Las Vegas Strip in Las Vegas, Nevada. You've all been here. Come and visit us. There's a lot of cheap rooms right now. How you doing, Michael Deeb? Good morning.
Hump day. What's going on? JP. Yeah, man, I'm good.
You're ready for this? This is the show where we. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You're ready. You had something to say.
We had a failure to launch this morning. It's taken us a little while to get this thing in gear and get it going again.
Well, people who are watching this are probably not watching live, and so they have no idea what we're talking about right now, which is great. Let's engage the audience about something they don't care about. Which is, I think, we don't have an audience, and nobody cares about anything we have to talk about. So, we're par for the course. This is the show where we talk about the most interesting cars and bids, and bring a trailer, and sometimes some other platforms as well, like PCar Market and maybe even eBay one of these days. But what we do is we talk about the cars that we think are interesting and have something relevant in today's market, and we talk about not just what we think the cars are worth, but what we think they will actually hammer for on the auction block, on the platform that they're on, because these platforms, as you and I know, Mr. Deeb, are very, very different from one another, and some cars are better served on others. And there is nothing that makes that more apparent than yesterday's results. We keep track of our predictions, and we kind of tally them up. We have a little bit of a competition, Michael Deeb and I, which is just kind of fun. We're pretty even, but our results yesterday, even though I have a couple of wins in the win column, and he has just a couple. It doesn't really matter because we were so dang wrong yesterday, and I can't think that it was anything but platform yesterday. Yesterday's results are the biggest results from platform I've ever seen since we've been doing this.
Yeah, it's crazy, JP. You had 3 wins. I had 2. Interesting to note, 2 cars did sell at the prices that they hammered for. Yeah. And while you and I try to guess the value of a particular car, we're also, the audience needs to know, is we're trying to guess what that car's value will be based on the platform that it's offered on. Yeah. So, it's multidimensional when we throw a number out there. As smork as our choices ultimately are. But let's start. The first one was arguably one of the more interesting ones on PCar, JP. We were looking at that really cool, beautifully preserved Jeep Wagoneer SJ. And this was a great car with, I think, like 36,000 original miles. You and I couldn't understand why the family ever let it go. But I think this car was being offered by the recent second owner, who's probably just flipping the car. I said 38. You guessed under at 35. And your guess was based on the platform because it's PCar. You didn't think the right audience was there for that car. And you were spot on. That car stalled out at $34,000. It did not sell at that price. So that was your first win. And it's interesting to note that on PCar, that car is now in the deal tank, offered at $42,500, which is closer to my bid, which is,
probably what it's actually worth. But you're absolutely right. This was a total failure of platform. I mean, the name of the platform is PCar, which is Porsche's, and I think that you and I lament their user interface regularly. We don't really like how the actual user interface works. The culture there. We've had some poor interactions with the people who work with PCar. We're not saying that they're bad people, but it seems like they're out of touch. They don't seem to understand what they're doing when they should be the ones that understand most. Right. And we'll actually talk about that later with one of the cars that are coming up on today's auction. And I'll give you a very specific example of a platform and someone running it and not understanding what the hell it is that they're doing. Very weird that car came on PCar Market. I guess it's an interesting risk that they took. But, that's another thing about PCars. They allow very high reserves. So hardly anything ever sells on there. So when you're trying to bid, it's like that you're not going to get it. get it unless it's a full retail price. You're probably not going to win an auction on PCAR.
Well, and again, back to your point, JP, about choosing the right platform for the product. This guy is obviously now looking for $42,500. If that car went on Bring a Trailer in that color with good ad and decent photos, I mean, JP, do you think, like I do, that car might actually bring $50,000 or more $1,000? Yeah,
I do.
You know?
I do.
That's crazy.
I mean, the provenance, the look, the condition, everything about that Jeep is the one you want. And
Totally.
yeah, it's kind of a, I don't know. I can only assume that the owner of that vehicle knows someone at PCAR or whatever, and they're like, hey, try it out here and see
I
what
was
happens.
thinking the same thing. Yeah, you know, like, oh, just throw it on there. They'll do it right now. You can set your own reserve, blah, blah, blah. And that's not necessarily a recipe for successful auctioneering.
Well, now too is that if you do go put it up on another auction, your car is burned because people know that it failed to make 34,000 on an auction. People will look it up and go, oh, hey, this is the same car and nobody bought it for this. It must only be worth that. So you've basically lowered the value of your car by putting it on the wrong platform and it failing to sell.
Absolutely good point, especially a car as distinctive as that. Another sunburst yellow, just technically orange. G-Wagoneer SJ out of wherever it was out of. I mean, that's just, there's no way somebody's going to go, I wonder if it's that same car. It's the same car, for sure. It's the same car.
Well, what are the other big misses here? What happened?
Okay. Cool. So, all right. So listen, to your credit, JP, again, I'm not like trying to kiss up to the host. We look at
I'll take it.
Unbelievable 2004 Mercedes U-Mog on Cars and Bids. I bet 135 and you bet 150. Suggested that this car was probably 250 to 300 grand when it was brand new, if I remember what you said yesterday. I was very close because the car did in fact stall out at 131, and that was a failure to sale at that price. But your bid was more indicative of what that thing should bring if it were on the right platform. And I was really betting the platform and trying to read the room on whether or not that car was going to go any further. I was pretty close. It was my first win of the day. And so that was another interesting and misplaced automobile. That car does not belong on Cars and Bids.
Beyond misplaced. That car, okay, so yes, you're right. I bid 150. You were much lower, and you read the room better. Both of us kind of... We both thought that's what was going to happen, but I didn't think it was going to be that far below what that car's worth. 150. My bid was a guess based on being on the wrong platform. So I was thinking, okay, it's going to come in probably 20 to 40% less than what it's actually worth. And I was way wrong because it came in even less. That car should have been 200,000. If it were on Bring a Trailer, it would have been 200,000, give or take $5,000 or $10,000, right? So Cars and Bids, total failure.
Yeah, 19,000 original miles. Despite it being a 2004, this thing's still a Unimog. It's going to last forever. It's going to, outlive us and the post-apocalyptic everything. That car was brand spanking new.
Yeah, and if you want one, you're going to pay 200,000 for it. There just aren't any out there. It's such a shame that, and it's a big loss, I think, for Doug DeMuro over there, who we have a lot of respect for, and we love the new platform. But he needs big wins like this. It seems like as we go on, Cars and Bids is becoming the place to sell your $20,000 to $30,000 car. Occasionally, they have some big number cars that go for six figures, but they're usually things like a newer McLaren or something that has a NADA value that is pretty much that you can count on, and but the weird expensive stuff is not bringing the big money here, and Doug has some big work to do, and that's also evidence in the next car I think you're going to talk about. Are you going to talk about the 95?
Sure, we can do that. Let's stay on Cars and Bids, as JP said, and we're going to look at the Land Rover Defender. This was a North American spec manual transmission, 100,000 mile black on black, beluga black with the black soft top, which DeMuro noted is actually a very rare combination in this country. This car does have 100,000 miles. This car does have an accident on its Carfax. It's auto check, I believe, because I think that's what Bureau uses. And again, trying to read the room, I really believe that this thing, despite the incident on the auto check that this car should be a $65,000 car, but because of the platform, it might stall out at 51, and I wasn't sure if it'd sell at 51. You took it over at 55, and this thing hammered at just $40,000 and sold at that price. So I think that's pretty well bought. I mean, my goodness,
that is
40,000
extraordinarily well bought. I am so glad I wasn't watching that auction, because I think I would have been in trouble financially, because that is a buy. Even with the, I mean, look, there's a lot, So Doug DeMuro needs to do something. I think his site has done very well out of the gate, but now it's kind of struggling to find its place. And we said it yesterday. Ironically, this should have been the platform for a Defender, a D90 Defender,
right.
Given that Doug DeMuro is famous for owning one and is part of the reason why they are so popular. The fact that this only sold for $40,000 is such a fail, except for the person who bought it. Whoever bought it, congratulations, man. Good job. Yeah. Okay.
Wild.
And this is a little scary because I have an SUV coming up for sale on Cars and Bids here in a week or so. So we'll stay tuned for that announcement. Okay. All right.
All right. Cool. And the car, JP, I still think you should have bought even at the price. We're going to jump over to Bring a Trailer for a minute, and we're looking at an '87 VW Scirocco 16 valve.
Hell
This was like a 72 or 76,000 original mile car. There was some corrosion underneath. The seats have been reupholstered and the back seats as well. So there's a few fishy things going on here. But when I look at this car, JP, and somebody tells me that's an original 75,000 mile car or whatever it was, I'm thinking that's a $15,000 to $20,000 car, an $18,000 car. And yet, there was something weird. There were only like 7 bids. I said 9,500. You undercut me at $8,000, which I couldn't believe that you did. And yet that car sold at $8,150, and you didn't buy it. I'm baffled that you didn't pick that thing up for less than $10,000. Anyway, there you go. I think that was well bought.
Look, I don't know. I mean, it had low. What'd you say? It had like 70,000 miles or something like that.
Yeah, 72,000.
But it looked like it had 150. I mean, its condition
really
was poor. And there were some comments in the gallery, and I was watching it. And let me tell you, when it was sitting there at 6,000 and not moving, with like 2 minutes to go, I'm talking to my wife, going, "I might be going to Georgia or wherever the hell this thing is." And thank God someone bid 1,000 over that, because I was just like, look, this car is really cool, and yes, I want one, but I would almost rather pay more for one that's in really, really, really good condition.
That's a good point.
This one was not. Okay. And people mentioned in the gallery, they're like, look, if this were in California, it'd be a $12,000 car. And
thank you.
Thank you. Was that you?
Probably.
I did comment on there when it was sitting at 6,000. I'm like, does the AC work? And the owner's like, yeah, it does. So bid. I'm like, I'm about to, and someone hit 7,000. I'm like, okay, I'm out.
That's so funny. It's really funny. There you go. All right, JP. That was okay. So keeping score, we're at 2-2. Last car of the day was Johnny Carson's old DeLorean DMC 12. David Sullivan made some interesting comments on one of our pictures later in the day, and he said how Carson was in fact one of DeLorean's largest private investors to help him get the company up and running, which I thought was a pretty profound take. So when they said this was a company car, I assumed that NBC Studios gave him the car, and now I'm realizing in the copy for the ad that it was probably DeLorean that gave him the car. And again, I agree with you, and your take is that he probably never drove the damn thing. It only had 8,000 miles after all these years. But if that's a DeLorean brass hat to one of DeLorean's famous celebrity investors, that does make for an interesting story, and that does seem to make sense as to why at most a $65,000 to $70,000 DeLorean was at $110,000 when we reviewed it yesterday. Yeah. So looking at the amount of bids and the action and the numbers, I thought that car might bring another $6,000. You thought it might bring another $5,000, and once again, bidders completely failed. There was not another bid on that car. They didn't get a bid on that car for the last 72 hours of the auction, because it was at 110 when I put it on our list or when you put it on our list on Sunday. So anyways, there you go. It hammered at its final bid from 3 days earlier at $110,000 and sold at that price, making your 3 wins for the day.
You got to wonder if that was a bailout bid. Like if someone just said, you know what, I'm going to set a lower reserve to get people excited here, but I'll bid this number and just eat the commission just to keep it in the collection and not let it go for too cheap. I don't know.
Right.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah. Neat car, but not exactly something you'd really want as an enthusiast, but certainly as a collector. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
It's such an iconic car, though. I only take issue with that. You and I, as drivers, don't really want that car, but as an enthusiast car, like if you have a big collection of cars, I mean, a DeLorean is. Man, everybody recognizes that car.
Well, I guess that's my point. As an enthusiast, and you have a collection, is that yes, I want a DeLorean in my collection. No question. If I had the space and the money, but that's not the one I would choose to have in my collection. I'd be like, okay, get me one I can use, or get me one that I could mod. I mean, I hate the whole LS the world idea, swap it or whatever. But if there was a car that needs a swap, that's the one. Because you'd love to be able to drive that car in a way that matches the way it looks, but its performance does not match. So. All right. Well, that was yesterday's news, and I'm sure everyone tuned in for yesterday's news because that's what people do. They want to know what happened yesterday. Now it's time to talk about what's going on today. We have a pretty cool star car that harkens back to our teenage years, the 1989 Honda. Tell us about this Honda.
All right. So this is a really cool car. JP, listen, the Radwood thing, I flippin' love it. I love when I see people wearing when the girls crimp their hair and they're wearing Reebok Velcro high tops and the guys are wearing acid wash jeans. In high school, I had a troop jacket that was acid washed and leather, and it was right out of the inner city. I mean, oh my God, JP, I love it. This car in the Bay Area with our Pacific Rim cultural Asian conglomerate of people here. This was the car I saw driving across the city all the time that I thought was really cool. That glass rear hatch, and this one coming with being an SI, Civic CRX Si with the VTEC engine, I think. And then this one has the JDM glass roof that was never available in North America. This is a right-hand drive example. You talk about growing up in Seattle, and there were 2 groups. There was the VW group, and then there was sort of the Honda group. In the Bay Area, it was almost all Hondas. When we sold a Volkswagen, it was really cool because they were so few and far between. There were Honda Civics and Accords that were slammed to the ground everywhere in San Francisco in the 80s and 90s. So this car to me is Radwood royalty, in my opinion, because it's so 80s where I grew up. Anyway, out of Pflugerville, Texas, with 99,000 miles. Repeat after me. I will drive. I will conform to right-hand drive and learn how to drive with my left hand, the shifter. This is a really cool example with some very tasteful and modest upgrades and modifications. Some wheels and some coilovers and a steering wheel and an exhaust. Otherwise, it doesn't sound like they opened up the motor or did too much. This just really cool car. And a no reserve auction, JP, sitting at $6,500.
I gotta disagree on the whole tasteful mods thing. This car ticks me off. I hate it. Really? I hate everything about it. I want this to burn down. Look, the right-hand drive thing is kind of neat and stuff like that. If it were stock, or if it were period correct mods, those wheels are not period correct.
True.
This thing is haggard up. It's all beat to hell.
It is beat down.
And the stupid steering, the stupid knob, the goofy aftermarket hood or whatever, or maybe that's a Japanese hood. I don't know, but it has that notch in the hood that the factory ones didn't have that, and that's just. And I don't see a reason for it to be there. Like, what is going on here? Is there Was there a Japanese version that needed that? I don't know. So a viewer
Clearly.
can tell us what's going on, but that is not the way they looked. When I first saw this car, on the list, I was like, oh, sweet. A CRX Si, we've been kind of waiting for a clean one of these to come through and be that Radwood royalty. I think this would be a Radwood rat that would be just like, everyone would be like, that's neat. But those wheels, what the hell is going on with these wheels, my man? How can you endorse this car? That is just, what is that? What are those?
Yeah,
that's like from, the Sears Automotive Center in Kansas, circa 2006. I mean, that's just gross.
Every car that pulls up next to you at a red light on Sunset Boulevard in San Francisco looks exactly like this car. All ratted up, beat to hell, bad tint job, Japanese parts that were brought over in a shipping container full of other stolen items and put on in a chop shop, not at a body shop, or in somebody's driveway in the Richmond district. And that's what they look like. And so as terrible as this car is, and I agree with you, it's not the Radwood royalty that we're looking for. It is, to me, what Radwood represents, because that's the car that grew up racing in Dad's Fiat Audi, and I was driving across town every day. It's just, I can't tell how many times I floored it against a car that's just like that.
Yeah, I think it is a mistake for Doug to allow this car on his platform. I think he sees the certain boxes checked, sees that right-hand drive thing, he sees an 89 car, an iconic CRX and all that kind of stuff. But he should look at something like this and go, it's condition. It's look, if I've got a McLaren, or I've got a G, not a G-Wagon, but a Defender or a Unimog that's worth $200,000. And I'm sitting here, what platform do I want to? Do I want to put it on the same platform that's selling, $6,000 rat trap CRXs for JDM kids that are? I mean, this car is going to wind up in a Kmart, an ex-Kmart parking lot on Wednesday night with 200 other kids in the same car, all doing burnouts, and this is not representative. This is not a way to build a platform that is going to compete with Bring a Trailer. Bring a Trailer, there's no way in hell they would allow this car on Bring a Trailer. And Bring a Trailer has gotten pretty whorish.
Oh my God, absolutely. Ever since, Hearst bought them. That's a great take, JP. That's a really great take. And I have to I begrudgingly agree with you. If I'm looking at trying to offload my six-figure car and I'm going to, I could be in the lineup right after this thing. Yeah. I would seriously, that takes a lot of gumption to pull that off. Okay. That being said, JP, this car is sitting on 16 bids at $6,600. I still think that there's a little bit of room left in it. I said $7,600, but I'm going to change it to $7,200 and say that and no reserve, it's going to sell there.
Wow, that's only a few $100s more than it's at right now. I think this car is indicative of the audience that Cars and Bids is building. So it might have some room. I'm gonna go $7,500, but I don't think it's gonna go much higher than that.
Okay.
Actually, if the smart money is to say that this thing only goes a couple $100s more, and I think your bid is going to be right, but this car should not be here. Doug DeMuro, I love you. I love your platform. I love being part of the community. Talk to your people. This should not be on your platform. You need to do some work. You're starting to flail, and we really want you to be successful here, because we don't want bid nerds to be the most interesting cars on Bring a Trailer. Because that's all there is anymore. I mean, that would be really sad. All right, what's the next car?
Okay, so JP, I have to say this car, the choice of the selection of this car is a complete reflection of your influence on me just in the last 6 months. We are looking at and I never thought I'd say I wanted to see this car in person, a 2001, a 996.1.
Look at that.
911 Carrera out of Brampton, Ontario, Canada. This is the early version, the 3.4 liter with 122,000 kilometers, which equates to about 76,000 miles. However, on the 996.1s, Porsche offered this incredible aero kit with the GT3 front end dam, the European only GT3 wheels, side skirts, and these cool little rear spoiler and winglets on the rear rocker panels. You've had us look at like one or two of these cars, and I'm really just digging this car in seal gray metallic over kind of a sad lighter gray leather interior. It does have some carbon fiber on the inside. It does look like there was some recent service done. Let me see if I can read this to you real quick. They actually redid the pistons, the clutch, the transmission, and the exhaust on this car. And so there it sits with a bunch of recent service. It's languishing right now. It's just on 19. Am I got the right car? I picked the wrong car. Hold on one second. Brampton, Ontario. So full aero kit. They did. We did the wheel bearings. They opened up the inside and did a clutch, flywheel, at the intermediate shaft bearing, and some of the other main bearings on this car. So that's all the service that was done to this car, and yet sitting at just $19,000 up there in Ontario, Canada. So it's obviously a big ask to bring this car across the border. I'm not sure it's going to dip into the 30,000s like this car would if it were in the United States, but this car does have U.S. history on its Carfax. So this car was in the lower 48 at some point. It's up in Canada. The question is whether somebody will pay the money to bring it back in. But really cool that you don't see a seal gray Aero Kit 996. There you go.
Yeah, really neat car. You're right. The Mark Ones with the with those headlights that people lament. At least these are the headlights. So I'm gonna just say something real quick. These are considered fried egg headlights because they have the turn signal down here on the bottom and it's orange, so it looks like a yoke. So that's where that term came from. But at least these are the clear versions. There is another version where this part right here is all orange, and those are really, really hideous. This version of the fried egg is livable. I mean, it's not ideal, and that's it's shared with the front end of the Boxster, which is why everybody's like, okay. But that said, I mean, the Mark One, it's got a great little 3.4 liter flat six. It's got a lot of poop. And with this look, they really are coming up 120,000 miles. With the maintenance is great for the owner. Whoever gets this car knows that they're probably going to have a fairly reliable, great, usable, good looking, a lot of eyeball Porsche. But I think once you get into 90 and above 1,000 miles on something like this, it really, really starts to affect the value. Whereas it doesn't so much on a G-body 911 or mid-year or long hood or any of that kind of stuff, air-cooled stuff. So if this car were 60,000 miles, even 80,000 miles, we're looking at, into the high 20s, maybe even breaking the 30 barrier. But high miles, Canada,
so
gray
JP,
interior.
It's 122,000 kilometers. It is.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
It is at 76,000 miles, which is why.
Okay. Well, that helps.
So interesting. I mean, where it's at right now, if you add $7,000 to it, you're in at 25. So it goes to 25 and you're in at 32 and bring it in, that's bring it into the United States. That's still fair value for a car with this much eyeball. And low enough miles and recent enough service where, again, they can brag about having done the main shaft pilot bearings, the flywheel, the clutch, the camshaft tensioner, gaskets, and IMS. So it's all there.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I guess so. Then the big problem so instead of having three problems, it has two: the interior color and the fact that it's in Canada are the two things that I think will hold it back. It's certainly on the right platform. We've seen some aero body Mark Ones go for big money. So, and the exterior color is fantastic. Boy, I hate those wheels. I know that that's the factory wheel, but I have never been a fan of that era GT3 wheel. It's just so
the US 996 GT3 wheel is a gorgeous rim, and that wheel on that car with the air kit would probably look stunning. So to me, that's right. You could spend the money. Anyway, that being said, and I'm sorry, I kind of jumped out of order here. Anyways, on this car, JP, I think this thing should bring $26,500 and sell, because again, you could get it in the United States for about $33,000, and in the United States, I think this car is worth over $35,000. So I don't know. That's what I'm going to say. 26.5.
Yeah, I'm not that strong on it. I mean, I think it's great, and I think the Mark Ones are definitely having a moment. And if you're going to get a Mark One, it has to be this one. There's no other Mark One that is going to bring that kind of money. but boy, I don't think I'm that strong on it. I'm going to say 25 and say that if it were here in America and if it were here in America, I think it's high 20s, but I don't think it breaks 30 even on this platform. And this is the correct platform for it. Wow. I don't think it's worth that much.
Interesting. All right.
Not yet. All right. We shall see.
I wish it were here and it were your price because then I'd want to buy it myself. That's for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. All right. What do we got next?
Okay, so let's go back, try to get back on track. So let's look, staying on Bring a Trailer, let's look at the 1985 Porsche 911 Carrera. This is out of Yonkers, New York, and in obviously a color that's dear to my heart. This is Rubino Rot Metallic, ruby red, which is the same color as my 84 Carrera. This particular car, JP, has been treated to a motor rebuild in which they bored out the block and made it a 3.4 liter. Other than that, it's largely stock. They did rebuild the transmission, but not much else has been done, which is interesting. So new clutch, rebuild of the transmission, and then this big bore. But it's stock brakes, stock wheels and tires, and looks like stock suspension with the photos underneath. It's a shame this car has that light-colored interior because I bet this car goes like a rocket ship. A 3.4 liter in that platform should make for a very interesting drive. I can't imagine this car makes less than 280, 300 horsepower with the big bore kit and a Steve Wong chip. So it's interesting. I wish I had that motor in my car because I bet it's a beast. The car looks clean, but that interior is a sad pairing with the ruby red metallic. My car has the black and I think it looks really beautiful. This car's got some unusual sort of sand dollar color and it just doesn't work for me. But there you go. This car has moved overnight. It was $25,000 last night. It's sitting at $30,000 GP again out of Yonkers, New York, with over 4 hours still to go. What do you think? What you think?
Yeah, I love that engine. Not a fan of the color typically. I think yours looks amazing, and I think it's exactly why you say, because yours is paired with black interior. I believe this interior color is called bisque, but I'm sure someone might disagree with that.
I actually think it's either linen or light gray. And even though it's got a lot of beige in it, I still think they call it light gray. But I again, we're going from some photos. Maybe you're right.
That's
Maybe
why we are called the Bid Nerds.
We're
that is a nerdy thing. Those are sports seats, though, right? Did you say that?
They are sports seats. I didn't say it, but they are. Yeah, and it's got the Carrera wing. I'm sorry. That's the Carrera spoiler. The whale tail.
I sure would love to drive this car. Our late friend. Derek Tanasalachai, he had an 89 Carrera that was that poor engine needed to rebuild, and his big plan was to make it a 3.4, and he would just tell us all the time how great that engine was, or building the engine to be that would be. Right. Rami's Turbo 86 was built to a 3.4.
Wow.
But that's a turbo, so that's a whole different story. This car, I love it. Not the greatest color, but who cares? You can live with that. That engine's got to be. This has got to be just such a great driver car.
Right.
You got a bid on it?
Well, yeah. And so here's the thing, JP. Again, last night it was at $25,000. And again, it's at $30,000 right now on just 9 bids. So it's interesting to look at that and say, where's it going to go? So I'm going to say, listen, if this were a black on black car, it would be well over $40,000, especially with that motor. But I'm wondering if it's going to happen. So I'm going to say $38,000, and that's a steal.
That would be a screaming steal.
9 bids.
I think the only thing that's really hurting this car is the fact that it's in New York. Honestly,
and that interior.
Yeah, but I don't think people. I mean, you and I don't like it. At least it's got a black dash. I mean, I'd be fine with this car. Again, not the favorite color, but we are seeing massive jumps in the value of G-body coupes. I think this is. Boy, what did you just say? You said 38.
38, and I think it should be a $50,000 car.
Yeah,
but there's not a lot of action.
Even higher than that. I'm going to give you a fighting chance and go 45, and I believe this car is going to break 50 on here. I think there's going to be a late rally, and this car is going to take off because that is what everyone is looking for. It's a Carrera. It's got the big, and the engine has been rebuilt, and it's got all the right things. Okay, interior color, big whoop. I mean, somebody's gonna. Yeah, I think we're gonna see a late rally in this, and I think it's going to be ferocious.
Okay.
Yeah.
45 it is.
I mean, if it goes for 38, Jesus.
Yeah.
I'll be watching it. If for some reason it languishes and you can get this thing under 40, you could buy this car and flip it. I mean, look, what was that? An 85, black on red 85 in your neck of the woods recently that you and I tried to get. And that car sold for, the guy was asking 30,000 and didn't have 200,000 miles on. I mean, it had a ridiculous amount of miles.
160. Yeah, 160.
Yeah, 160 miles, but it looked like it was in decent shape. It sold in less than 24 hours for 30 and was back up listed on all the normal places, Renlist, Pelican, Craigslist, everywhere, like within 48 hours, and the guy was asking 38 and it sold in less than 24 hours. And my guess is that car will probably see it again, and someone's going to list it for 48 or 55. So yeah, I think this car is going to bring all the money. It's just going to take a second.
All right. Well, there we go. Right. So let's see if I step completely on my Johnson with that one. All right. Okay, cool. So let's jump over and JP, you picked a unusual car here out of South Jordan, Utah. We're looking at American Muscle with this 1974 Plymouth Cuda coupe. Now, this car has been reimagined by somebody, probably Scott or Steve or some American kid. Gary. This thing's got scoops and a spoiler and some big old mismatched 17-inch wheels, and somebody wedged a huge 496 cubic inch V8 in there and put a replacement 3-speed torque flight 727 transmission, whatever that means. And they refinished the color. They chose a new yellow color here. So it's interesting that this car has been basically completely redone. But look at that, American Muscle at its finest. This thing, JP, even I have to admit, that is a bitchin' looking ride. I mean, what an amazing car. Here you go. I would imagine that if this were just a true Cuda and it was stock, it would probably be sitting at a lot higher bid. But this car is sitting right now at just $27,500 on, let's see if I can read this to you real quick, JP, on 24 bids. So there you go. What do you think?
24 bids.
Yeah, it's getting some action.
This thing could not be more boomer. I mean, geez, dude. Whoever drives this car, you just have like a single tape. Remember when cassette tapes, you could buy the singles? They would have one track on one side and one on the other. I mean, you basically have to have Warrant, just on loop in this
cherry
thing.
pie. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, this thing is just so stupid. I hate this car, and I'm with you. I think if it were more stock, it has the potential to be pretty darn badass, even for a 70s American muscle car. But those wheels, come on, dude! Whoever built this thing. You've been watching too much Gas Monkey. This is just Richard Rollins' disgusting. Just his aesthetic is awful. The reason why I chose this car was one reason only. Not because I like the car or anything, but one of my earliest memories is a friend of my parents had one of these, and he would park it in our driveway. And as I was probably 5 or something, and that big huge piece of glass in the back on that rear window was kind of large for its era. And we lived out on a lake in the middle of nowhere, and there was lots of gravel in our driveway. And I just thought, as a 5-year-old, that was such a wonderful idea to just throw pebbles at it. And I distinctly remember throwing a pebble at the back of that car and watching all that glass just instantly shatter and collapse into the back of the car, and just realizing as a 5-year-old, I just start bawling,
so much trouble,
freaking out. I go inside, and everyone's thinking I'm hurt, and so now I've got the sympathy. I'm going, hey, I might actually get away with this, and
nope.
I blew out the back of a Cuda. Sorry to dude. I don't even remember the dude's name. I apologize. I assume my parents bought you a new piece of glass, but sorry. I have no idea what this car's worth.
Yeah. So Barrett Jackson and Mecum Auctions are running, like hundreds of cars a day on when their big tent circus comes to your town for their seasonal auctions around across America. They're running, really 1,000 car weekend on a 4-day auction, and this is the shit they sell. These American cars that have all been modified. And what's amazing to me is these modifications narrow the appeal of the car. And I don't understand why everybody does it. Like if you did this to this car, when you go to sell it, why wouldn't you put the stock wheels back on this thing and make it look original? Put the original steering wheel back on and then show them the wheels and the steering wheel in a photo. Say, these are included with the sale. Or if you got half a brain, go sell that stuff on eBay to the next idiot that wants to slap it on his Cuda and get some of your money back. But this doesn't make any sense to me. And there's too many of these cars. And I think that's part of the reason with the dilution of the values of quality American cars that are still out there. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. That's my take.
And the boomers are dying. The people that want these things are literally dying. And their kids are inheriting stuff like this, and their kids do not want these cars. A millennial or a Z generation in his early 20s just is looking at this thing like, what? And they're embarrassed by the fact that it exists. So anyways, all right, so it's at $27,000. We got 40 minutes or so to go. Where do you think this thing lands?
I don't know, man. It's so hard to put a value on it. I when I do my things late at night, sometimes my head's not on straight. I think I'm going to be sorry about my $38,000 bid on that 85 Porsche, but I'm going to change my bid on this 74 Cuda and say that it's only got another $5,000 in it. I'm going to go $32,000.
Yeah, that's a pretty good guess. That's exactly where I was going to take it. 3 or 4 grand because I think So you said 32. Oh God, I'll go under and say it stalls out at 31. It might find a rally. This is again not the platform for this. I mean, look. How much do you think this car would bring at Barrett-Jackson or something like that?
So here's the thing about those auctions. It depends on what day and what time of the day you get your auction slot. Clearly Saturday afternoon is where all the big ticket items go. If you knew somebody at the auctions and you could get yourself or purchase a Saturday slot, you might get 40 grand for that thing. I don't know.
If the Ed Hardy or Affliction store is having a sale and the guy goes in there and buys a bunch of, bedazzled shirts and he's like, hey, oh man, I got a good deal on my latest tattoo looking stupid pirate shirt. He might be in a buying mood. He's going to go down and drop another $50,000 on something that I mean, this car is the Ed Hardy or / Affliction of cars. I mean,
whatever day your car runs at Barrett-Jackson or Meekham's, you want it to be late enough in the day that the audience has had a couple hours to drink, and then your car looks infinitely more valuable.
And then you're a douchebag walking down the strip or wherever the auction is in Scottsdale or whatever, going, woo!
Yep.
Woo!
Doing burnouts. Doing burnouts right off the showroom floor. All right, JP. Last car of the day. Let's wrap this up with we're going to jump back over to cars and bids and look at a 2009 Porsche Cayenne GTS. Now, this is a pretty high mile one at 99,000 miles. It is the automatic, unfortunately, not the 6-speed manual. It's an automatic. But these cars with the 4.8 liter V8 that made over 400 horsepower, these are, in my opinion, next to a Trans-Siberia, the coolest versions of the E1 platform. And boy, I think the design has held up well. This car is offered in, it just says red, but I forget what red this was. Carmine red, I think. Yeah. If it's carmine red, that'll be like a metallic pearl, and it's an expensive paint job. But it looks, with the big old red brake calipers and the 20-inch wheels that are on this thing, it's an attractive car rolling down the road. Yeah. I can't really say anything bad about this car. It's had quite a bit of service in the last year. Catalytic converter, water pump, thermostat, battery, brake pads, oil and filter changes. This car is serviced and ready to roll. Offered to us, JP, out of McKinney, Texas. Man, Texas is in the sell mood today. This car closes actually in 10 minutes, and it's sitting on 53 bids, JP. Ton of action with a low number. It's at $16,500. The automatics bring around 20 grand and the sticks bring over 30, creeping up to $40,000. It has to be one of the most unusual automobiles Porsche sells in the secondary market, because the transmission makes all the difference. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this car, the GTS, handles, it belays its weight. I mean, it is an incredibly heavy car, but you get out on a real road and start throwing this thing into those twisty curves. The super tight stuff, it's not, you can feel its weight, but when you're on one of those, like out here in Overton, or some of the fast parts of the crest, you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe this is a nearly 6,000 pound vehicle.
Right.
This one does not have PDDC, which is an incredible, it's like the stabilization management, but is also problematic. You mentioned that this car has had a lot of maintenance. Well, that's because they require that, and that will continue. Whoever buys this is in for continued expensive maintenance. As everyone knows, I own a 6-cylinder. An example of maintenance costs is a high-pressure fuel pump on the 6-cylinder version is about $600 to replace. The high-pressure fuel pump on this is $2,800.
Oh,
and you can basically use that magnification factor on the cost of everything that goes wrong with this thing, and it will. Now, it's very rare that the powertrain fails. Like, these are actually quite bulletproof when it comes to the engines and transmissions, but you're going to have a lot of little stuff that you're going to have to take care of.
All the ancillary.
Look good doing it, and it's going to. This, I don't know if there's a better like road trip car. You got to go to LA or up to, if I got to come up and see my friend and Michael Deeb in the Bay Area, that's the car I want to do it in.
For sure.
It's so, the bolsters, the seats, the thicker steering wheel,
so comfortable.
Great stuff. As far as price though, 16.5 at 53 bids, that's actually really good money for a 90-something thousand mile GTS. I mean, they really don't break 20 grand really anymore. I mean, you got to be in the 60, 70,000 miles for these to really be that kind of number. So I don't know if this has much further to go. I sure hope it does, because again, we're talking platform. This is bids. I have a Cayenne manual transmission 6-cylinder one that is going to be dropping here sometime. We think this week or early next week. I want to see big numbers for Cayennes, and yes, usually the manual ones go for twice as much.
Cool. All right. With that being said, JP, I think this car is going to reach $18,000. What about you?
Gosh dang it, that's about where I was going to go. A lot of bids here. I'll go 18.1. I'm going to really do the Price is Right thing, because you stole my. That's right where I was going to be.
Cheeky.
I am going to cheeky, but it could stall out. I don't think it's going to get any much higher than that. I think you might get a Yahtzee.
All right, then I'm gonna change my 85 Porsche. I'm gonna change my 85 Porsche thing. I'm gonna go totally wild hair, and I'm gonna go from 38,000, and I'm not gonna just undercut you. I'm gonna go 40.
You're going in after the fact? What is this?
Hey, man.
We've got new rules all of a sudden?
Absolutely. I'm going to change my bid to $48,000 and say, you're right. You convinced me in the last minute, and I'm sitting here feeling guilty and ashamed of my bid, being that I'm supposed to know something about classic Porsches. I'm going to say $48,000, and JP, this thing better have a late rally. I'm going to blame it on you. There we go.
Oh, my gosh.
So there's still $3,000 between us, and you get all that beautiful real estate under your $25,000 where it's currently sitting or something.
You all that room. I didn't go $100 over. I was like, look, I'm going to give you a fighting chance.
I'm going to change my bid to $48,000.
$5,000 over what you bid, and you still would have won that.
Last night, I was thinking this car is either a $38,000 car or a $57,000 car, and we'll see where it lands. This will be very interesting, because it by all accounts, this car should bring all the money. Let's see.
We are talking. You were going back to the 85.
85, the 85, 3.4, not the 01.
You're having a fit over here.
Yeah, bitters remorse.
Hilarious. I don't know. Okay, so this is a first on Bid Nerds, a little Backsies thing.
Yeah, I take Backsies. Yeah, I'm gonna take the over.
I'll allow it. it. All right. Well, there it is, man. It'll be an interesting day on the Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer and P-Car and all those places. It's always an interesting conversation. We hope you enjoyed it. And we'd really like to see what you guys think. What cars do you want us to talk about? What are the cars that you think are the most interesting cars in Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer? What do you think of our bids? Tell us if we're right. Tell us if we're wrong. Give us your bids. What I'd like to do is I'm tired of competing with this guy. I want to compete with the audience. I want to see what the audience thinks and sees if I want to see if the audience can consistently beat us. And my guess is that they can. There's a lot of smart people out there. And I think soon we'll start offering some prizes for people who beat us.
Ooh, there we go.
That kind of stuff. So there it is, guys. Another episode of Bid Nerds, your daily nerd on the most interesting cars and bids and bring a trailer. My name is John Polnik, along with my partner Michael Deeb. We thank you for watching. And Deeb, you want to say anything else before we cut it out?
No, man. We'll see you tomorrow.
There it is, Bid Nerds, 9 o'clock hour. See you tomorrow.